What's happening? We are live. It is noon Eastern, Tuesday, January 14th. This is Deep Look, Multiworld's weekly podcast about everything going on in the land of Ultimate Frisbee. I'm joined by senior editor Keith Rayner. I am Charlie Eisenhood. Keith, we got some heavy business to attend to. TikTok ban is maybe actually going to happen. I'm sure it's not actually going to happen. Somebody's going to buy it. I saw Mr. Beast wants to buy it. Maybe Elon's going to buy it. Well, let's say it gets banned.
Is Ultiworld going to jump in there? Come on, man.
I mean, we might put our name in the hat.
Save the platform.
All we need is a cool, 15 billion? Is that what I saw?
Is the subscriber numbers not hitting that? What if we just watch one $15 billion subscription? Lifetime sub, $15 billion. Come on. We can make this happen.
Let's remember, Elon paid really quick. Elon paid $44 billion for Twitter. Vaporized. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Keith. What will you do if it's gone?
Be sad and move on. I think Instagram Reels is not the same thing, but I'm sure somebody will try and fill the void. Overall, it feels a little apocalyptic on TikTok right now. I would compare it honestly to Y2K. That's what it feels like to me. Now, most of the people who are on TikTok probably don't remember that, but there's something a little silly, we're all panicking and this may not even happen. But there's people trying to organize massive boycotts of Amazon to get their point. I'm like, this is not going to work. But TikTok is TikTok's barely existed. How can we be so attached to it? Vine was a great predecessor. It disappeared off the map. Something filled the space. So I'm just counting on the natural cycle to bring some other tool to bear to get my short video entertainment.
Maybe I'm just old, but I don't understand why it couldn't just be YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels. Isn't that what everyone's going to do? They're just going to go there and make the same videos. Is there something
there's
special
some magic
about TikTok?
to TikTok.
There is.
I don't know if it's from the creator side as far as how easy it is, but that's what I feel like it's always been touted as. They've got the secret sauce algo that makes your homepage really feel like you're getting something that you want to watch continuously, and it's easy to scroll past. And I guess YouTube and IG Reels have just never captured that same vibe. Although I think it's doing pretty well for itself.
I will say I downloaded TikTok, I don't know, 18 months ago or something, and I, made an account and started swiping. I had to delete that instantly. It's like crack cocaine. You can't have it on your phone.
See, you had the secret sauce. You tasted the secret sauce. You're like, it's too good.
No,
please take it away.
I have to fight against YouTube Shorts too. If you start swiping up, it's endless. It's literally endless.
Content's
anyway,
being created faster than you can consume it.
Make sure you watch all of Ultiworld's YouTube Shorts, though. So today we got a fun little exercise. We're gonna draft U.S. World Games teams. So Keith, you better get ready to go because it's about to go down. I feel like we've had some very interesting drafts of late. And we have what I would call an unofficial tryout list. For some reason, USA Ultimate hasn't announced the World Games tryout, even though it's happening in 2 weeks. We haven't seen the list. Maybe they're waiting to announce college nationals, and then they'll let us know about the World Games. Either way,
maybe they're trying to recruit some professional athletes or something to join the squad. I don't know.
But shout out to Edward Stevens, who figured out that there was backdoor information on ultirazor.com, and he pulled together an unofficial tryout list. So that's what we'll be using as our draft board. If you're an Ultiworld subscriber, you can find the link to that list. We'll probably try to acknowledge players who we're not picking. For instance, Joe White does not appear to be trying out. Well, obviously because of the injury. And then you've got some other players who were on the World's teams but aren't trying out. So we'll try to acknowledge those where we can. But we've got the link in our Ultiworld Discord, which if you're a subscriber and you're not already in the Discord, you got to get in there. It's just the best place to talk Ultimate Frisbee online. So, do we need to set some ground rules? I think we should talk about the fact that this is not intended to be predictive, especially since we're going to be picking 28 players between the two of us, not 14. We're just trying to draft the best team according to our own criteria, not necessarily projecting what we think the coaches will do. Although we will do that at some point. Maybe once we have the full official tryout list, and maybe after the first tryout, we'll make our picks.
Well, we will do our official picks at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking forward to getting into this draft, but I want to make sure I get a chance to sneak in some good trivia for you before we get into the draft later in the show.
Awesome. I'm ready for the trivia question of the week.
All right. Well, I know this is a World Games focus episode, but come on, it's college season. Let me drop some college trivia for you, Charlie. So, we all know about the UNC Dark Side semifinal streak, right? Every year since 2014, right? They have reached semifinals, and in most of those years, even advanced past semifinals. But there's a flip side to that coin, because some teams have been getting up against that wall and not able to get through. Charlie, I went through to find the teams that have lost in quarters the most during that time. So since 2014, which D1 teams have lost in quarters the most?
Wow. Oh, like who is always pretty good but never great? There's a bunch of teams that I feel like that are in that window of like always solid. Let me think. Can you give me the number of, well, I guess you're only giving, how many are above 5? Let me ask you that. Is that a fair question
I
to
will
ask?
tell you,
it's not really a hint, I don't think.
How many teams are above 5?
5 losses in quarters since then, yeah.
There are 5 is the highest number, and there are 3 teams with 5.
Got it. Okay, so I'm trying to guess these 3 teams. All right. I'm going to guess Pitt men. Maybe Stanford women and Texas men.
The chat also immediately fired off Texas. There's some agreement around Texas in the chat. Texas is not it. They have 4 quarterfinals losses. A strong guess though in the men's division. If you tallied up all their quarterfinals losses, it's been a run, but a lot of those have been pre-quarters losses for Texas during this time period. Pitt men is correct.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Pitt you have to be good enough
losses
to be getting to quarters.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously sometimes Pitt gets to semis and sometimes they've won in the past, but a lot of times if you get to quarters, you lose there. Okay.
Yeah, last year was the first year, aside from the year that they missed nationals in 2021, that Pitt had not reached quarters. So they've been in the quarters conversation for a long time, but they've often run into the wall there. Stanford was not correct in the women's division. Stanford with just 2 quarterfinals losses, according to my records. And who's the third team? You said Stanford, Texas, and Pitt, right? Those are your 3 answers.
So let me throw out some other guesses. I've got one of 3. Colorado women and Oregon men.
You're doing a good job thinking of teams that are getting in the position frequently. Colorado has been at that line every year, excluding 2014. So every year since 2015, but only in 2015 and 2016 did they actually lose in quarters. Excuse me. They also lost in pre-quarters in 2019 and 2021. But the rest of their run since 2016, when they got two quarters, they won. Uh, Oregon men was the other one you said that they have two in that time span, which are the last 2 years.
Oh, okay.
So the answers
All
that
right, I
you're
guess.
looking for,
Yep.
I'm going to give them to you. UBC in the women's division,
Oh, okay.
they also have five. Uh, they would have six if we went back to 2013, but they made semis in 2023, but otherwise lost in quarters in each of the years around then, and had the same process happen in 2016 and 2018. So they've been kind of on off semis and quarters. And the other team was a surprise to me, but you just had to track back a little bit to when they were in the position that Texas is now, I feel like. And that's the Hodags.
Oh, wow.
2013 to 2019, they lost in quarters in 4 of those 5 years. Or 5 of
Yeah,
those 6 years,
it makes
excuse me.
sense. They weren't on my top of my mind because they haven't really been a bracket team in a few years. But for a long time, they
Yep.
were
And they
there,
haven't
there
even
every
they
time.
haven't made nationals since then, basically. Like
Right.
they've made nationals in 2021 and 2022, but they haven't made nationals in 2 years.
Right.
And they haven't reached quarters since 2019. So
Right.
they've
Right.
kind of fallen off, but prior to that, they were consistently hangers on.
Right. Well, all right. Interesting. I'm not sure it's the greatest stat to have attached to your team. I mean, it's still something to make the bracket, but you'd really like to
It's good, but not great.
punch up into semis a little bit. It's good, but not great. All right, let's get into some news before we fire off this World Games draft. The Portland Rising of the Premier Ultimate League is suspending operations. As we have seen in the past, teams calling this a pause, not a shuttering. And to be fair, we have seen teams reboot and find money and rejoin leagues, as we have seen with the Astra. So perhaps we will see a future for the Portland Rising, but they are shutting it down for 2025 at least. Keith, just curious what you make of this news, and if it has any implications for the rest of the PUL.
It's obviously unfortunate, and nobody wants to see that. The Rising have been a team and hailing from a region with a great ultimate history and community. They kind of we're covering a lot of the Northeast, basically. They acted essentially as the Boston area team. It's clear that like there's enough there to make that happen, but also it's hard to read this as anything other than a money situation. That
Of
there
course.
wasn't enough money to keep the team feeling sustainable. So either the league and current ownership are going to go out and look for additional support in that front. I mean, I shouldn't even say either. I don't know how else they're going to make it happen because I guess there's some off chance that there's enough community rallying to revive the team, but that just feels like a short term solution. And that kind of band aid isn't really what you want. I think it's probably preferable to a pause. Like if they could add a community funded season in 2025 and then lined up sustainable ownership moving after that, I think that probably is what you want. I think there's a lot of value in the continuity. But like we said, we've seen teams be able to come in and come out with a little more fluidity without necessarily feeling like it's dooming the team. Maybe we haven't seen teams do it successfully yet, but that's just because it's a fairly new phenomenon. The implications for the wider league, though, I think are a little concerning, given that this is not the first team we've seen have to go on this route with Columbus also doing this. So I think you have to wonder about like is the league itself in a position to get over this kind of hump that they're at right now. They had a great run up of growth, but can they continue on that and get over this next tier, or does it kind of stall out here? And these are the kind of signs that you would start to read into. Okay, maybe there's some concern about the overall health of the league.
I just I'm generally wondering like how is this going to work out for Pro Ultimate? And that's just not the PUL. It's also WL. It's also the UFA. Like, what I is there enough here for people to stomach the losses for years to come to make it work? Like, how how many franchises across Pro Ultimate are breaking even? We're not even gonna say making money, just breaking even. Like 2, 3? I just have a hard it's I find it, discouraging, but I also find it logical. Like, if people keep selling the team to the next person who's willing to lose money, like, how long do you do that before you run out of buyers? Maybe I'm wrong to be pessimistic, but I have a hard time seeing how this is all gonna work when, you know, players aren't even really getting paid for the most part, with some exceptions, with certain franchises. But, like, it's a lot of money being spent, and we're not necessarily seeing, like, significant audience growth, uh, happening. And I would love I want them to succeed. I want to see them do well, but it's just like it's such we have so much work to do to create a base of, like, interest in the sport that only has been deteriorated since COVID, that I just finding myself feeling, like, concerned about the whole enterprise.
That makes sense. I mean, when you look at it on the whole, when the UFA was really getting going, Ultimate, it felt like was still in a growth space, and now it doesn't. I
Absolutely.
mean, it feels like participation is in decline. And, I don't think anybody could have seen the pandemic coming or necessarily how the rebound from that was gonna go. But, these fledgling leagues popped up right prior to that time. So, kind of a bad being dealt a bad hand. I think of, like, the restaurant industry and all the restaurants that probably kicked up right before the pandemic that had to shut down, and
Brutal.
it's tough out there. It's an unforeseen circumstance.
I mean,
But
remember
I agree with you that you gotta wonder about what's gonna happen. There is still space within these leagues to reach additional adoption within the Ultimate community. So, like, there is more to grab there. But I think without a larger trend of growth in the Ultimate space as a whole, it's gonna be hard for these leagues to get more of a foothold towards sustainability.
yeah, I mean, and, you think about bad timing. Remember VII bought 5 and Aria, like, literally a couple months before the pandemic, and then has essentially gone out of business. I mean, they sold Aria to the UFA, um, and, it's I think they sold 5 technically to, Disc Store, right? Um, but I mean, essentially, they're just gone. So I generally like I feel like the industry is in an okay spot right now. The existing apparel, companies are doing fine. In some cases doing really well, and that's like an obvious place for growth, but I I still feel like people aren't rowing in the same direction. We don't really have a lot of collaboration between USAU, WFDF, and the pro leagues, and, like, without that, how does this really work? So, anyway, that just gets me thinking about it. It's not the only team to fold, um, but it's, it just shows that, like, the money challenge is very real, and people have to be willing to lose money right now to make it work. So, I think structures like what we see in Raleigh, where they have a nonprofit set up and they're taking donations and they're using that to fund the team, and it's focused more as like a community building tool as opposed to, like, a for-profit company franchise type this situation, makes a lot of sense given where Ultimate is. Um, any final thoughts, Keith?
I mean, I think you hear of, a lot of the organizations within the WMPUL are nonprofits. There are some LLCs among the group, but I think there are a lot of people with that kind of thought process. And, uh, you know, I, I, I also think that this is kind of a natural thing for sports leagues, right? Like a lot of leagues, even in more established sports, kind of come and go, and then a new effort comes together. I don't know, about the boundless supply of volunteers and energy that the ultimate community can provide for this, but that's kind of been the way that we've always done it. So I wouldn't be surprised if, even if even if the worst case scenario comes along and we start to see leagues fold, if somebody isn't able to revive the concept in a new form within the decade after that. So uh, it's a long process.
Yep. Well, let's take a look at the schedule for the PUL. We've got the schedule out for the 2025 season that is coming up. If you're watching on YouTube with us, take a look. Jumps off the page for me right away. I mean, we were talking, of course, about the fact that LA is joining an East Coast league. And they're going to have to make 3 flying road trips for their 3 away games. To me, that does not seem like a recipe for success. It, I think it would have made a lot more sense to try to figure out a way to do a double header, at least on one of those trips, if not doing something like a triple header, as difficult as that might be. But just like from a monetary standpoint, it just makes a lot more sense to me. But what do you see when you take a look at the schedule, Keith?
You look at the opener. I think it's clear that Radiance and Astra feels like the marquee matchup of that April 5th week 1. And then to me, the next thing that I try and look at after that is how do the teams that have traditionally been the powers out east, how does their schedule stack up? So that's DC, New York, and Philly. Who's getting who's getting whom at home? Because I feel like those matchups have felt like they've been pretty defining over the past 2 seasons in the league since Philly joined the league. So you see like New York gets Raleigh in New York in week 4. Philly gets New York in Philly in week 2.
Yep.
Those are the kind of matchups that I'm looking to see how do they line up. DC's also traveling. Raleigh's traveling to DC. Man, Raleigh looks like they have a tough road schedule if they have to travel to LA, DC, and New York.
Yeah, it looks like Raleigh has 4 away games too. Interesting. So their only home games week 3, they play the Soul, and then week 10 they play the Torch. So a little bit of an imbalanced schedule there for the Radiants. DC, what do they got? They're going to LA and at Nashville, home against the Radiants, at Austin, and home against the Monarchs. I feel like I missed one somewhere. Home against the Soul week 3. Did I say that? Should be a playoff team.
So they play Philly and New York both on the road. Is that right?
Did they get New York on the road? No, I don't think
DC's
so.
in LA. No, they don't. They don't.
In LA, in Nashville, home against Atlanta. Like I love them in those matchups. Then they have a home against the Radiants.
It's wonky the schedule this year with only 7 teams. It's a bit wonky.
Yeah. That's kind of a natural problem's going to crop up there. So anyway, championship weekend, June 14th and 15th. Should be interesting to see how it all shakes out. You got a preseason favorite, Keith? I know we haven't really seen rosters yet.
Oh. Yeah, there's so little. I really wonder what New York's returning group looks like after they had so much turnover going into last year. And if they've got the core Colombians, like they've never lost. Yeah, how are you going to pick against them at this point? They've literally never lost, never not won the title. So that's the big question mark. But if I assume that they're coming back, then I take the gridlock.
All right, let's talk about the UFA. We've got some interesting stuff going on over there. The divisions are getting realigned. There is a look at what they will be for 2025. And it's nice and balanced. 6 teams per division, at least from a numerical standpoint. But interesting to see the South, Atlanta, Austin, Carolina, Houston. Yeah, makes sense. LA and San Diego joining the South. So Vegas joins the West, and we get those 2 Southern California teams playing in the, let's call it the like below a certain latitude division. not traditionally considered the South, of course, but interesting thing the UFA is doing, they're going to have teams only make one big cross country road trip per season. And so that means that like LA, for instance, they are either going to fly out to play Atlanta and Carolina, or they're going to fly to Texas and play Houston and Austin. And so it's a little bit of despite the fact that it feels like it might be tons of travel, they're actually just sort of mitigating that. It does mean, though, that all the teams in the division are not going to play each other. Do you like the decision? I mean, it's certainly pragmatic from a cost standpoint, Keith, but it does mean that you're going to have some imbalanced schedules naturally.
Well, of course, as a fan, I don't like it. Right? I want balance. I want you to play everyone in your division, but I also don't have to fund any of this. I mean, in some way I do, but I don't like have to make any decisions. I don't have to cut any checks really. So, uh, obviously it's easy for me to be like, oh, I want all the teams to play each other when I don't have to. I don't have to be the one paying for them to fly across the country. Uh, it's I'm really wondering like, all right, who's sending the sweet tea and the white gravy recipes out to LA and San Diego? Are people in LA gonna get to say y'all now that they're part of the South? Like what's good here? It's the South feels like the mishmash division. Everybody else gets to stay the way that they feel like is appropriate.
Yeah. Let's talk quickly about just who's winning these divisions. Who do you like? Obviously, we'll get more into our discussion of the UFA closer to the season, but with the realignment, with Vegas coming into the West, losing those two teams from the West, Oregon, Steel, rebrand, who are the favorites heading into 2025?
I don't think this is all that complicated to just kind of stick with what's worked for you. Like I think you should expect Minnesota. Uh, yeah, it's kind of a toss up. I think in the East, that's not unusual. I think I'll trail back to the Empire, but we haven't really seen rosters yet. Easily could be Boston or potentially DC, and there's all this buzz around Toronto because they've signed some players from across the ocean, bringing in some talented players from Europe, and then Atlanta and Salt Lake. Although I am just absolutely tickled pink to be able to jump back on the Seattle bandwagon out west. Surely they won't break my heart. There's still what could go wrong.
Well, no Khalif for one, who was spotted at San Diego tryouts. I think to me, I'm really interested in the East with Toronto making some pretty significant upgrades. I feel like you're now at the point where besides Philly, any of those teams could make the postseason. Um, I'm compelled, and we'll see how much retention those other teams have of the talent. New York's made a couple big signings. Montreal has some players they absolutely have to keep if they want to stay competitive. But they were punchy last year. I'm curious out west. Does the Oregon Steel rebrand make a difference? Do they sign? Because if Oregon actually signs the best players in Oregon, they could be a playoff team. In fact, they could win the West. I mean, obviously, Portland just won the club title, so we know that's possible. But remains to be seen whether they're actually going to sign those players.
I mean, weren't a bunch of those players on Nitro?
A bunch is a reach, I think. But I bet it's also like they were on the team and then
Yes,
travel, right? So like, what does that actually mean? But the West is also interesting. I think losing LA and San Diego makes it more competitive. Playoff spots going to be hard to come by.
I gotta wait to see if Oregon and Vegas are going to be real teams or if they're just free wins.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. What else we got? Oh, we're coming up on MLK weekend, so of course that means we've got Layout and LA Throwback. Both tournaments planning to play this coming weekend, despite the fires that are burning in and around LA right now, including the Palisades fire, which is just north of Santa Monica, where Throwback competes every year. There's an article up on Ultiworld that gets into it a little bit more, talks about some of the details of like why they're planning to continue, what they're planning to do. Um, and so you can check that out if you're interested. Keith, I'm curious, and I've seen a couple comments here and there online that basically say, it's insensitive to play a party tournament when there's like suffering happening, people are losing their homes in LA like right now. How do you feel about that? Does that ring true for you?
I think that you can kind of let people make that decision for themselves, right? Like if the participants who I think there's probably a fair chunk of whom live in the area decide that they feel comfortable playing, then I don't feel like I should from across the country just they shouldn't be able to do that. If they feel like they could use a distraction or something positive, then yeah, they have the right to go for it in like some sort of like moral, ethical sensitivity sense. Now, is it a safe decision? That part I'm less clear on whether or not it is a situation that could potentially turn dangerous for people, and if the risks are worth it. It makes me feel a lot like back when we were having conversations around COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the risks of traveling during COVID were a little bit more obvious, I suppose, than the hypothetical danger that exists at this time. I mean, air quality right now is fine. Obviously, you don't know what it's going to be in a few days. If the smoke is blowing across Los Angeles or Huntington Beach, then maybe you have a problem. From a fire risk standpoint, you are playing on the beach. It's not super likely that you're going to be in a dangerous spot unless the fire works its way down into Santa Monica. But that they actually the city yesterday, city of Santa Monica, just lifted their evacuation order for kind of that area of the city that's just south of where the forested hills begin. Um, so they're actually lightening restrictions, not making them more onerous right now. I've been thinking about this for a couple days and having talked to the TDs, who, by the way, all live in LA. Like these are people who live in LA. They're organizing these events. The volunteers, it's all LA people, and they want to continue. So like in my mind, if you're traveling from out of town, and you decide you don't feel comfortable, then I think you just don't go. But I don't really see a reason. Like people are still living their lives in LA. People are still going to bars. People are still going. Obviously, it's if you've lost your home, it's a horrible situation. But people have home insurance. It's not like this is something where like you going is going to cause a negative impact to people who have lost their house. So I think it's fine to play. I think, if I was going, I would probably be thinking about what I could do to help in some way. But I definitely understand the perspective of the tournaments of saying like, as long as it's not dangerous, we're going to play.
I know personally I would not want to go. And not just because I hate the beach. That's like even if I like the beach, I wouldn't want to go. Just I don't know. It's not the right vibe for me with what's going on there. But I have to think that it's going to dramatically impact the amount of people who are traveling to these tournaments and the overall financials for the tournaments. So it's a little surprising to me, but I'm sure that the people who run these tournaments have at least a financial sense of what's going on. And then I think it's worth noting the uh, brief mention of this from Robin Fenig on X. Robin has worked in like emergency preparedness for a long time and does so in California now. And said that she had actually sent the organizers some concerns that she had coming from her background. And I would generally listen to somebody who has that type of expertise. And she was of the mind that the risks are not really worth the gain. So I think it's important to have that perspective out there. And I'm not in a position to assess those risks, but when somebody who is in a great position to assess those and knows the community and Ultimate well, and probably has a sense of what these tournaments mean for participants, I think that's probably a voice at least worth considering.
Well, let us know what you think. Email us deeplook@ultiworld.com. Are you somebody who's planning to go? Are you failing? Let us know what you think. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, World Games Draft and a really fun mailbag question of the week. Stay with us.
Every moment of this game, look each other in the eye and know that this is our game to take.
So many people before me and alongside me have worked really hard to put the team, the program in a position to compete for the national championship year after year.
Everybody who puts on the ring jersey wants to meet those expectations.
The longevity of this is bigger than one moment.
North Carolina is the premier area for men's ultimate.
Yeah, we came here to win. We've been building all season.
You know, in those big moment games, you want to trust your guys to make plays.
Welcome back to Deep Look. Make sure to check out that Ring of Fire documentary and so much more with an Ultiworld subscription. If you're just bored waiting for Ultimate to get going again and you're not playing Winter League, there's so much archived content, not just games going back 10 years, but also documentary shorts, film room stuff, packed into we were doing an internal Ultiworld trivia game. There was a question about how many videos have been published to our back end video library, and guesses were in the like 2,000 to 2,500 range, and the actual answer is 4,000. I was shocked by that, but that we got a lot of videos.
Yeah, maybe we need to have a watchathon. Let's just post every video one time only. We're running the whole thing on YouTube for how many hours of footage? Is it like 2 weeks, just straight streaming?
I think more than that. You figure the average video is like 20
Frisbee?
minutes. Oh my gosh. That could be a fun exercise. So let's get to our World Games Draft. Again, Keith and I are going to be drafting the best teams that we can draft. We're not necessarily trying to be predictive of what the coaches will do. Although obviously I would expect there to be quite a bit of crossover between the 28 players. I think the odds, how many players on our two teams, Keith, will ultimately make the team? Because we're picking 28 players. Of those 28, how many will make the 14-person roster?
Oh man.
Over, under 12 and a half.
Over. We're gonna get 28. I think we're gonna get 13 of the 14.
I feel like we might miss on one or two. All right, well, I'll take the under.
One or two feels like the right line.
You get the over, I'll take the under.
Okay. Why do you want to bet against us? That's fine. Okay. You don't have to.
Okay, I'm going to do a spinner wheel online with our names on it, okay? So we'll just to decide who goes first. The winner can choose whether to go first or second. I'm spinning the wheel, and the winner is Keith. So, Keith, you can go first or second. Snake draft.
Oh, man. I think I want to go first.
Yeah, I think that's the right choice, and there's I think a very obvious number one pick. But I hope you don't pick.
I'm definitely picking the person you're thinking of, Charlie.
I
This
don't
is
know.
not hard. I will.
No, it is hard.
I will
Yeah,
take
don't
Chloe
do it too
Akimi
hasty.
first overall. No, I'm taking Claire Trope. Chloe Akimi may feature later, but I will take Claire Trope. The lockiest of locks, I feel like, to be had here. And really, is there any explanation needed? I don't think so. No elaboration required.
No, I don't think so, Keith. I don't think so. Pretty obvious number one overall. I would have been my pick as well. What a dominant run for Claire the last couple of years. Just like also going to be a lock on the World Games team, no doubt. I don't really have much to add about it. I wish I had gone. I thought for a second you might go second.
I had to look at my tiers and what I have Garchope in a tier of her own, so that was a deciding factor.
Oh man. Where to go? Where to go? This is a harder exercise than you might think. I'm going to start with someone who's been knocking on the door of making this team for a while and I think is now very, 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 very clearly going to make it. And that is Rafi Hayes. Coming off of the championship, coming off of the Pody selection. I mean, he's been a lock all-club guy for a couple of years. He was an alternate for this team last cycle. How does this? He can't not make it this time. But I also just think like again, I'm not trying to predict. I also think that he is who I want to pick. Just can play anywhere ORD, and like that's what you're looking for on a World Games team. And just a nightmare matchup on offense. So that's my first. My second. One final trip. Chris Kocher. I don't have too much more to say about it. This guy's been one of the best players in the United States for almost 10 years now.
This is gone literally how I would have picked it. If you had asked me to guess what the first three picks of the draft would be, I would have said these three players in this order. I think that you obviously could probably flip Kocher and Hayes, but it substantively doesn't matter in the outcome anyway. But worthy of note that they were picked in that order, and this is how I expected to go. And I think this is a point where you would start to see us differentiate. After our conversation during the bold predictions episode with producer Lindsay Sue, I think that you and I could be further apart on some of these players than I would have initially thought. And from here on out, I think there's a little bit of the Wild West here. Like, I think that one of us could end up really happy with our team, or both of us, because we might not be competing for players that we don't view in the same light.
Okay. I guess we'll find out.
So, yeah, I'm very curious how things will break down from here. With my next pick, I'm gonna take Jeff Babbitt here.
Wow.
Wow.
Not that I'm surprised you took Jeff, but just this early is maybe feels like a surprise.
I just think he has an inevitability to the way he plays. He offers something that basically nobody else offers. Like,
yep.
I know that there are other people who play the big man role. His just has a singular ability to physically dominate and creates matchup problems. And when you can pose that kind of question to teams as a starting point and say like, okay, well, if you can't deal with this, then we don't even have to do anything else. That's a lot of influence to have over the game. And having that kind of weapon is going to be really useful. So I'm going to take Babbitt here. I also would note that there are some, like, the big from last year's roster is not listed in the tryout group. I'm surprised by that. That
You're talking about Nate Goff.
Yes. So
it is worth noting.
Open slot.
It is worth noting. It is possible that the list that we are pulling from is not completely 100% factual.
Yes.
We don't have the official tryout list from USAU. And I will note that when this list was initially pulled, Jack Hatchett in the Discord was like, "Thank you for reminding me to register because I haven't registered yet." And then he was subsequently added to the list. So it is possible that, for instance, Nate Goff just hadn't signed up yet. But at this point, I think it's probably more likely than not that he's not trying out.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And again, we're working with the list that we have, so we're gonna start there. My next pick, I really am not sure exactly what I'm gonna do. I think I'm just gonna fire off, and take. I'm gonna take Kayla Heldon here. Proven a player, obviously comes with the World Games experience, seasoned vet, like fill whatever role you need. Yeah, we've it's so proven. We've seen it before, so that's
Sure.
enough to get me there.
Great all around player. Yeah, I can't quibble with these picks. I mean, it's going to be hard to quibble with a lot of the picks here unless somebody picks somebody way too early. But Babbitt is just literally destroying people to the cone over and over again, and is clearly, I think, a top 3 defender on the planet. Kayla's poise, experience, obviously skill on both sides of the disc make her a perfect fit for a World Games roster. I'd be very surprised. I wonder if I consider her a lock for the actual roster. We'll be talking about that in our mailbag question of the week. I'll be considering. Okay. Where am I going here? I think my next pick is Claire Chastain. Again, we're talking about a returner. We're talking about somebody who has gone from being a center handler type to being like a defense first player. Maybe the most impressive player from the last World Game cycle on the US side. Definitely up there. So certainly don't feel like we've seen Claire like drop off in any meaningful way as a player. Love the versatility. And so that's where I'm going first. For my next pick, I'm going to take Dina Elimelech, who I think is basically ready to ascend to this level of like they are one of the great players in the sport, and make a World Games team. I mean, this feels like an inevitability to me at this point.
I mostly agree with that. I was not sure exactly where you would go here, but yeah, I think Dina feels like an heir apparent kind of to Kayla Heldon, right? Like a player who just is so rock solid both ways, offers a lot of size, has a clear role, but is balanced enough to not be pigeonholed, to not feel limited to that role. So I agree with you that Dina feels ready and feels like somebody who could play, 2 or 3 World Games teams and maybe never be like the anchor of any of those teams, but be a strong contributor on it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you almost sell her short a little bit. I think she could be an anchor of a team in the future. Maybe she's not quite there yet, but I really, I love Dina's game. I think she's a perfect fit for a World Games roster.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with the fit. Man, I don't like that you snagged Chastain out from under me here. But she's less of a handler, I think, than in years past. I feel like I do want to get someone who can be more of a centerpiece offensively as a thrower here, but you really don't have a lot of room for specialization with this group. But I do have a handler on the board who has the experience, and is coming off a pretty remarkable club season. And that's Carolyn Finney. So I'll take Finney here. I know feels like the Finney stock is like kind of risen and fallen in spurts, but can't deny the takeover ability. Is one of the game's maybe one of the best takeover players in the history of the game. Like, just has that way about her, and obviously is very seasoned at playing at this level. So I'll take Finney here.
I think like 6 months ago, I would have thought this was like, I don't know, Finney maybe like not another cycle. No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with my old self anymore. What a run at Nationals. Looked amazing.
Yeah, that's my thought too. Is I think prior to this past club season, I would have been a little lower on this pick, but just a really strong year for Finney, and I think that was enough proof, given the history before that, to feel like any decline was more aberrational than it was like a sign that Finney doesn't have it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I go next here? I think
it starts to open up a little bit, I think, at this point. Like,
yeah,
you can go a lot of different
there's
directions.
a lot of different. There are a lot of people I could take at this point and feel good about it. I think I want to take. I think here is where I'm gonna pull the trigger on Henry Yang. There's
Okay.
part of me that thinks I
Funny
can
where your
leave
mouth
him.
is on the early
I mean,
Ing pick.
You said you would take Michael Ing over Henry Ing for odds to make the team. I don't know if that means it was your preference or if you just feel like Michael Ing is a shot, but there's part of me that thinks I can leave him on the board because of that. But I don't think a lot of other people would share your opinion after what we saw from Henry Ing this past cycle, both playing at the WC senior level, but also in the club season. So I'll go ahead and snag Henry Ing before you can get there.
Listen, he's a great player. Okay. Starting to think a little bit about my balance. I feel like I need a little bit more handler. I'm thinking about some players for later. Like, the draft format makes this a little different. Like, I can save some people that I don't think you're going to pick. I have a question for you. Are we assuming everyone is in full health that's trying out?
I think you can assume that, like, if there's an injury we know about or persistent, that should impact how you view a player, but that everyone, I think you should assume that people are going to be fully healthy by the time World Games happens. But I wouldn't necessarily assume that for like tryouts per se.
Fine.
And that may impact their ability to prepare.
I'm taking Anna Thompson then. We don't totally know what Anna Thompson's situation is. It looked like a fairly significant injury. When we interviewed Anna, she did not want to talk about it, so we didn't get any information. She's she's registered to try out. So I'm assuming that she will be able to play, and I'm assuming then that she will be in full health for World Games. I feel like that's a fair assumption to make. Yes, that's what you're saying. Because, like, if I'm assuming that she's hurt or I have,
it would not surprise me if she is like not full go at tryouts. But
well, I don't really care about tryouts.
I think she knows that they know what she could. Right, exactly.
The tournament. So then I'm taking. I mean, I think if you believe Anna is ready to go, she could even get drafted higher than this. But I'm going to go ahead and make the pick now. What an unbelievable Nationals, specifically late in the bracket. But I mean, I thought Anna was going to make the World Games team last time. So now I'm like very sure, like, experience playing mixed, incredible defensive ability, total like energy spark plug type player too. So I'm happy to have Anna here. For my next pick, Hmm. Who am I sleeping on right now? I feel like I need to make sure I look close at the list so I don't miss anybody.
I know. I'm not even looking. I'm looking at like my short list, and like I hope I'm not missing somebody from that list.
I know, like you're like worried that you're. Oh wait, I should have taken them. Rats.
Yeah.
So tough. So tough. Too early to take them. I don't know what to do, Keith. I don't know what to do. Look, I'm gonna play it a little bit safe, and I'm gonna take Dylan Freechild. Returner. Playing on the D line now. Versatility unquestioned. Like can lock up handlers. Obviously, a deeply experienced player. You're totally happy to have Dylan have the rock as you're like hunting a break. So I'm going for it. You have to have some players who've been there before on your team. And right now, I guess I have Chris and Claire. So this gives me one more.
Okay, that was a bit of a curveball round, and I know who I'm going to take next. And honestly, I'm a bit surprised that you let this person get back to me, Charlie. I thought I thought you might have taken this person back in your last set of picks. A chance to bring karmic justice to right a wrong that you have been complaining about.
It was considered.
Long.
Yeah, it was considered.
And for those who are in the know,
I'm glad you're going to right the wrong.
I'll just watch on the show. I will be taking Cammy Groom.
I respect it.
It's the right thing to do. Look, there's been zero decline. I don't know how she's still like the most athletic defender that you're going to find, but she still is. And thank you. I will happily add that to my team at this point in the draft. Yes. Where else to go? That's tricky. There's two players who I'm thinking about. I think I'm going to take, this is a bit of a curveball, I feel like, to you. I'm going to take Johnny Malks here.
Wow.
I got the wow from you. So
I want to hear your reasoning. I want to hear your reasoning.
He's just feels like a player who greases the wheels of the offense for people. I think that with the rosters and with the context of the rosters that we're already building, he is one of the strongest individual throwers available. But
of course,
clearly has I think has grown so much from an athleticism standpoint that he can hold up with this group of players. And I think I have gained more respect for Johnny's game by talking to players. Like other elite players have a ton of respect for Johnny. So it's been very convincing to me that he's hit the elite level in full stride.
Yeah, I guess I just harbor some questions about the defense. That's really it. I mean, the bona fides on offense are unquestioned. Maybe the best like pure handler pick available on the men's side, but not to say that he can't play good defense. Just that's like not necessarily the typical player they take. Right? They've often not picked pure handlers. Like they didn't take Ashlyn. I remember that being like very controversial because then they had horrible offense. That cycle.
Ice cold take now. Not taking Ashlyn.
So listen. He's a great player. I don't think it's a bad pick per se. I just think it's like a little bit of an atypical World Games pick. But it depends, I guess, on whether you're going to run like open rotations or if you're going to have an O and a D line, or maybe you just feel like his defense is good enough.
I did go with an aggressive choice here, but I think that part of that was that I think there are not a lot of other players who could fill his role, and I wanted to ensure that with two of us here that you weren't going to be able to pull that in.
That's fair. Okay. Cammy pick makes total sense. I guess I don't really understand why they didn't take her the last 2 cycles, but you say that she hasn't dropped off at all. I don't know if I agree. I don't think she's quite the player she was 5 years ago. That doesn't mean she can't still make the team, but that's why I didn't take. If Cammy was still available in this set of picks for me, I probably would have taken her. So it's a close call.
I mean,
all right.
She was the second runner up for Player of the Year 2 seasons ago. Like I don't know that she's really fallen like that much
off a cliff. I'm not saying it's off a cliff. I'm just saying like not quite the same player. Okay. Okay. Let's see. The hardest part, I think, is deciding whether to take young players. Like you took Henry. Otherwise, like I mostly have like mid to late career players, which is kind of typical of this World Games. But I mean, there's some super talented young players that it's like hard to decide whether you want to take them or not. Is it too early to take this player? I'm going to say no. I've been so impressed with the development of this player over time. They are now at the point where I think that they deserve a World Game spot. And not because of the clout on the internet. I take Marquez Brownlee. I genuinely think he is like, I'm not going to call him a favorite for a World Game spot, but he's very much in the running because of his ability to play a really rock solid D-line handler role while also setting great marks, throwing great pulls, and playing great overall defense. Like once upon a time, it was just like a pure athleticism player and is now just like a complete all around winner. And I feel like every single year I've seen Marquez get better. Just played on the world's mixed team, was one of the best players on that team. Why not? Right. Then in the mixed format, he's a perfect fit. He's a perfect fit. I do wonder if you think I took him too early, but I'm going right there.
He is. I'm very surprised that you went for him this early. I totally agree with the trajectory. I've been more impressed with him each time. I don't know if I'm underestimating him or he's getting better that fast or both. But yeah, I think he's going to be a much longer shot to make the actual team than you might, but I don't fault the pick at all. Like he's definitely someone who's in consideration for me. Who else you got?
Give me some speed. And I'm going to take Christian Boxley.
Woo, close one. I mean, not that I don't want Box on my team. I feel like the only knock on Box has just been that he's not been healthy, right? He didn't have the same impact this year, but it just feels like he was his injury.
Yeah, I think you have to assume health, right? Otherwise, it's kind of like without being at tryouts, it's kind of hard to make assessments about like skill. You know, like if they're going to be impacted negatively by an injury, I'm just assuming that they're going to be good to go.
I think that's why I'm assuming it felt like he did not play as well in 2024 as he did in 2023. Like in 2023, you know, he was like a clear top 3 player in men's competition. Like I think the hype on him was through the roof. And I thought it really died down this past year. And maybe that was due to the struggles of his teams. So people were talking less about him. But yeah, if it's not due to injury, then maybe 2023 feels like a little bit of an outlier for him, but that's why he's going in the 8th round and not the 3rd round.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, this works out for me because I was worried, as was mentioned, as the person I'm picking was just mentioned in the chat. Sam Morrill said, Khalif, question mark, and I was worried you were about to take him. So I'm glad that you didn't see that one, because I'm taking Khalif.
He was
I'll
literally,
add
I was
another
picking between him
returner.
and Box.
On another returner, a player who I think showed me more about his ability as a handler than I anticipated at the World Games. I think even he himself would say I'm out there as a defense first player. But he clearly showed the two-way game, and that his game is more fastidious than his reputation was, because he was such a big playmaker in the younger part of his career. I think a lot of that's been buttoned up. So uh, I'm happy to get him this late in the draft. My next pick, I think that here is where I put my stamp on another player whose name I mentioned, and that's John Randolph. I think I'll take JR here. I have my bold prediction that he makes the team. There's a clear two-way guy. Is going to be comfortable in the kind of tinderbox environment that the World Games puts you in, where you have to play a lot, you have to carry a lot of load. Nobody gets the light work out here. There's not a weak matchup. JR is all about that, right? This is a guy who can play point after point after point after point, and do whatever you need him to. Is a tremendous defender. So I feel pretty good about getting him in this spot, even despite the age.
I like it. Two good picks. JR's, he's got a great chance to make the team. Like, his ability to play like lockdown handler D, and then be like a leader after the turn. That to me is just like pure World Game stuff. And obviously, Khalif, having made it last time, I think he grew on the team. I think he's like in the like prime of his career. Probably would be surprising if he didn't make it. Okay, back to me. I only have 3 women picks so far to 5 men, so I probably need to do a little picking over there. So tough. Do I want to go for more speed? Okay, I'm gonna take a player who has just been unbelievably effective on every single team that she's ever played on, and that's Angela Zhu. Just like probably going to mostly play D on my team, but obviously capable on both sides. A winning player, like someone who steps up in the big moments too, takes the toughest matchups and gets blocks. We saw it at Worlds. So I need another handler too, so that works out great. Then I'm just gonna do it. I'm taking Jolie Krebs.
Whoa!
I've been weighing it, and like, do I want to take a younger player? I think Krebs has been. I thought she was one of the most impressive players when at 100% in all of 2024. But it's obviously I'm taking a younger player there, and maybe too young.
And there are other young players to spend that age capital on. I am surprised, not because of Krebs' lack of talent, but just like, we haven't seen her compete really that much at the world's level, right? Like,
people make the World Games team without having been a notable player.
True.
Every time.
Her star's also just risen so fast.
Yep.
That it's.
I just think she's that good. I just think she's that good.
I'm surprised by the pick. I'm also soundly disappointed that you sniped me again. I was definitely hoping to get Angel Zoo on the come around here. Taking a look at WC, see who maybe stood out there some more, to see what those numbers might tell me. Just gaming room, 28 total points, trailing only Clear Trope. It was pretty good for the women's team. Next up was 17, which was Angela Zoo. So I'm just saying, still got it.
All right. I'm all I am saying is that she's not as good a player as she was 5 years ago, which to mostly means that I'm shocked she didn't make the team. That's all I'm saying.
It's fair. It's fair. Where do I go next? It's getting tough out here. And not because there's a lack of options. It's like, who do you like put on the pedestal?
I know.
All right, I think I'm gonna go. I think I know what I'm gonna do here, and you highlighted a winning player in Angela Zoo. I think part of that's she's a leader that people trust a lot. I'm gonna add someone who not only is an incredible talent on the field, who never seems to just maintains that level of play and has for so long. Has seen everything you can see, but is one of those keystone players who I feel like teams rally around, who makes their teammates better. I'm taking Mad Dog. Taking
Damn it. I thought I was going to get her next time. No.
I can't believe how good she was this year. I can't believe how good she was with the Worlds team. I can't believe how good she was with Fury. Like, surely age has got to catch up with her one day. All the miles, put so many miles on there, but whatever, to remain sharp. So I think she's going to add a lot to my World Game squad, especially because I've got some youth, and maybe this opens me up to taking more young players, because now I've got a great leader. Because I also, I'm not exactly sure where I want to go here, but I think, again, I have two players that I'm picking between, but maybe I should open it up to this other person. No. I'm looking at my lists, my tiers, and I think, okay, I think I'm going to take Sarah Mextroth here. I'll take another returner.
No.
I know, like, didn't close nationals like in the best. I don't think she had like the best club season we've ever seen her have. But that's on the tail of some pretty strong international competition. She looked the part with the WC team, and was, I think, maybe underrated her performance at Worlds. I mean, she was one of the primary finishers, put up a lot of goals for the team, especially down the stretch. Great defender. So I think the experience speaks for itself too.
Well, those are two snipe picks right there for you. I was all lined up to take Mex after you took Mad Dog. I didn't see it coming, so you double sniped me.
Back to backs. Got him.
God, it's so hard. It's so hard. Ready to take Michael Ing. Not going to let you get the Ing brothers on the same team. We can't have that.
Can't bring Stu's prediction to bear.
Michael Ing was killing it at Worlds. And again, I feel like I'm doing exactly the thing that you see the coaches do, which is just load up on like athletic two-way players. And Michael Ing fits the bill perfectly. Back together with Anna Thompson on a roster, you love to see it. So an easy pick after the level of play we saw at Worlds last year, I think. Okay, so I have one more male pick, two more female. think I can safely wait on that pick.
Wait to snipe that
So,
person from you.
um, gosh, I find it just all incredibly hard to like creating distinctions between the players that I still have left on my board is like impossible. I have like 10 women left and I'm like, I don't know how to pick between them. Um, trying to think about what skill sets I have. I'm gonna pick Jade McLaughlin. Albuquerque reppin'. Speed. I think is gonna just like be mostly an offensive weapon, but that's fine. We love to see it.
Bucket getter supreme right there, and certainly
Yep.
someone who knows how to get a W or two. Has stayed winning since
13 goals, 0 assists for the mixed team in Australia.
All right. Well, this lines up, I think, the way that I want it to. Oh man, there's three. I have three male matching players left at like kind of the top of my list, and I think I'm just gonna take two of them here. Maybe I should let you see if you make the decision for me. Maybe I should take one, and I'll leave the other two. And see if you pick for me. Do you have two male matching players left? Or one?
No, I have 1 and 1, I think.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'll leave one for you, but I'll make sure I get I'm gonna go ahead and take Quinn Finer.
Okay.
I've been a big fan of his game. I feel like I've been pretty public about that. I think he fits the mold. Player who can operate downfield, is super well rounded, but also could be in a more throwing heavy position. Isn't necessarily like a handler you center the disc to, but I don't think these teams necessarily need that. Like, recall that last year they were putting Dylan Freechild in central handling positions, and I don't think he's a player who you necessarily think is like, oh, center the disc to me. He's a player who probably initiates downfield and then moves as a thrower. I think with someone like Quinn Finer, I can see a lot of that happening. So I'm going to take Quinn Finer, and that gives me I also now have 1 and 1 left.
Okay.
Oh man, I thought I was going to let you make the pick, but I really have no idea what I want to do, with my women matching player. So maybe I am going to take my other matching pick. Let me take my roster. So I have Babbitt, Henrying, Malks, Leaf, JR, Finer. Man, I when I went to look at the stats, this person just jumped off the page, and that's making me like second guess a little bit. Because I was like, wow, maybe I should have had this person higher on my list than I did. But all right, I'm gonna take Sam Little here as my last male metric player.
Ooh, I like it. I really like it. I was thinking about whether I wanted to try to take Sam.
He's just a little more like a handler centric version of Finer. In fact, he's like super quick, but can operate in a lot of different positions on offense. Very capable defender, two-way guy, very seasoned player with a lot of poise. So I'll take Sam Little here.
I like it. I really need a like rock center handler type. And so I've been waiting because you took Malks, so I knew you weren't going to take another handler on that side. And the question is really who I want.
I can I skip to who you're gonna pick? Because now I think you've tipped your hand, right?
Well, I think there's two choices. Well, there's maybe three. There's Mac Hecht. There's Jacques, and there's Rowan. But I think I need to take Mac because
That's who you're gonna take.
Just how good. Yeah, it's who I'm going to pick. You're right. So I'm taking Mac. If you don't want me to drag it out, I won't drag it out.
I just want to make sure that I knew who it was going to be. I am. I'm not that surprised by this pick in the end. But I think that the things that you raised as concerns about Johnny Malks, I feel like are present for Mac Hecht, right?
Absolutely. Okay. But I think you tend to have a hard time finding like a really pure elite thrower that's also like a great defensive player. It's rare, I think. Like who is that person? Rowan? I just feel like problem with well, yeah, maybe. I think on the MMP side it's harder to find.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Just because you often see, like, especially Fury, right? They're not running OD lines, so it's like you develop differently as a player in that situation. But I don't know, like Mac has really grown as a defender since college when he was like at a time just like kind of terrible, and then has like gotten quite like noticeably improved athleticism. And I think has just been so effective as a handler that you almost have to take him. Like I won't be surprised if he makes the actual roster. I think it might be a harder ask because it just really depends like who's going to fill that role. Okay, so let me just double check that I have the right number of players. That's 7. Yes. Okay, so one last one. What do I want? I don't know. Should I just take the best available defender? Doesn't seem like a bad idea.
I don't think you should do that.
I'll take Don Colt.
Damn.
Snipe.
Yeah, you got me. I mean, I was deciding about with a couple different people, and I was like, okay, I think the right answer is Don. And yeah.
All right, I'm done. Who's your last pick?
I'm taking WMP here, and I don't have to worry about who you're picking. So players I'm thinking about right here are Abby Hecko, Jenna DeJesus, and Juliana Werfele here. I think those
all
are the
players are on my short list.
I'm looking at right now.
Yep.
Werf is like the type of player who I feel like every other player is like, oh my God, I want to play with Werf, but like never puts up big numbers. Like hockey assist dominant. So I feel like it masks her contributions a little bit. But she also is the most specific to a role, I think. Like she's going to excel as a handler. You're right that in women's division, the women matching player list, like a lot more of the handlers are really strong defenders.
Yes.
And
again, that's like play style differential. Make a choice, Keith.
I think I'm gonna go with that because I think that's the safest pick of those 3.
Okay. Well, let's look at some players who didn't make our picks.
Yeah. I have one that I want to start with because
Go
I
ahead.
was not sure if this person was gonna, and that's the 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 returner that's not Jimmy Bickle that we left out, Grant Lindsley.
I cut him
Did
early.
you have him in consideration? Okay,
Nope.
no.
Nope. No, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, but I just don't think he's quite there at this level anymore. I mean, I wouldn't be like totally shocked if he made the team, but I just think, you know, there's better options now.
He was on my list, but lower than some of the
Let,
other options that I
let,
was
let me just
considering.
let me rattle off some names. Jack Hatchett, Brett Holzmeyer. Boy, I really wanted to pick him, but I needed.
That was
I ended up having a spot.
when I said I was picking between two of three mail matching
Yep.
players. It was Quinn Finer, Sam Little, and Brett Holzmeyer.
I kind of feel like
he was dominant at WC.
Are we
Teams could
wrong
not
to
figure
not
out what to
have
do
him?
with him.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like he could be the big that makes the team. Like, you
But that's
took
the thing is
Abbott
he like
and
isn't
Henry.
a traditional big.
I guess.
Teams do not take him and just like throw deep shots to him. He is
No, I know,
way
but you
more around the
can.
disc with every team I've seen him. Yeah, you could, but I don't even know if that's necessarily where he excels. Like I don't know if he's as good in the air as his size might indicate. I think he's better at like using that size to have a really big catch radius around the disc, and to get throws off. Like I don't really view him anymore as a crazy deep threat. Like I would prefer to have Babbitt or maybe even like Yacht in a jump ball situation. But
Sure. Okay.
I not to denigrate Holzmeyer. Like I said, I almost picked him. I think it's totally a viable pick. I mean, the guy gets stuff done, especially
I think
offensively.
other notable snubs. I'll just run down my list. Lucas Ambrose, Alex Atkins, Calvin Brown, Ben Dameron, Trent Dillon, Micah Glass. You mentioned Ben Yacht, Tanner Johnson Go. Daniel Lee is another guy who I was like very close to picking. Lucas McClamrock, Rowan, AJ Merriman, Jacques Nissen, Jasper Tom, Cam Werner, Jack Hatchett. I think one of those last
Did you
three
not
guys
just say
said,
everybody else?
I didn't. I already made like a cut list.
I'm pretty sure that was the rest of
Hatchett, Warner,
a bit of a
Tom.
draw
I think
out.
one of those guys will probably make the team.
Wow. I see. To me, the first line like snubs that you're looking at are like Rowan, AJ Merriman, Hatchet. Probably those three are like top line players that we probably could have picked, and I would have felt fine about it. They could have taken a spot over one of the guys that we picked, and it would have
Any
been
of the names
really
that I
reasonable.
said. I mean, I took some names that maybe are like not going to be on most people's list. Marquez and Jolie Krebs, particularly.
Agreed. I think those are surprise. Another player who maybe you didn't
I
mention
think
this
Sam
person, but is
Little.
like
Sam Little is kind of a
pretty
deep
high.
cut for you.
Pretty high on the list. Yeah, I mean he's in one of the last rounds, but I agree. I think he was a deep cut. I did think about taking him earlier, all the way back in the Johnny Malk slot, where I was like thinking about, okay, who's going to be the getting the disc off the pole on my mail matching players, and I thought about Little in that position, but I preferred Malks. Another player who I think I was like really close to having into one of those last slots is Thomas Edmonds.
Yep.
Just a baller, a great defender, quarterbacks
Sure.
after the turn. Like I think he clearly can operate on both sides of the disc. So he's someone that was in consideration for me.
Some notes from the other side.
Mhm.
Jenny DeJesus, Abby Hecko, Sadie Jezerski, Kirsten Johnson, who I think had a fabulous club season. Maybe Kristen Pajunas. But there were more leftover MMPs on my short list.
I think I'd add Claudia Tajima to that list after the way that she played at Worlds, as well. I think Lindsay McKenna is somebody who could play themselves into that position too.
I had McKenna on my short list. It's a very difficult process. Imagine only being able to pick 14 players, Keith.
Yeah. Do you? I have a question. I have a question about a specific player.
Sure. Yes.
Do you think Alex Atkins' attitude will preclude him from being able to make this team?
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't say it wasn't.
I think you have to be
whether or not I thought about him.
I think you have to be at that level of shit talkery in order to like maybe not make the team, but I think he is like at that threshold. I think he's good enough to make the team for sure. Anyway, you can see our teams there on the YouTube version. I'll run them down really quick. Keith has Claire Trope, Jeff Babbitt, Kayla Helton, Carolyn Finney, Henry Ing, Cami Groom, Johnny Malks, Khalif El Salam, John Randolph, Anna Nazarov, Sarah Meckstroth, Quinn Feiner, Sam Little, and Juliana Werfely. I have Rafi Hayes, Chris Kocher, Claire Chastain, Dina Elamelek, Anna Thompson, Dylan Freechild, Marquez Brownlee, Christian Boxley, Angela Zhu, Jolie Krebs, Michael Ing, Jade McLaughlin, Mac Hecht, and Dawn Colton. Two great teams. Who wins?
I mean, obviously, I'm going to pick my team, but we got to let the people decide.
Let the people decide. Put your votes in the chat. We'll throw it up in Discord as well. People can make their votes. Good luck, coaching staff, picking 14. It does bring us to our mailbag question of the week as we get ready to wrap up this show. And it is a little bit more World Games stuff. This one comes from Sean in the Discord. You're given $10,000 for each lock you give for the World Games team. If they get picked, you get $10,000. Sean, it's very generous of you. Thank you. If you get two right, you earn 20 grand, etc. But if you get a single lock pick wrong, you don't get any money. You can lock as many or as few players as you like. How many players do you pick and who? Keith, you can start.
Without thinking about the players specifically first, I off the cuff, I feel like I'm probably going to say like 5, maybe 6. It's weird because on the one hand, when we have talked about this, we've been like, oh, wow, there's not a lot of spots that feel like they're up for grabs per se. Like there are a lot of returners and the team is just really small, but you also just don't know who's going to be the surprise. You know what I mean? Like it may feel like there are a lot of returners who are likely to make the team again, or it may feel like there's a clear group of players you expect to make the team. But like, you know, if you put Carolyn Finney in that group, what if she's the one surprise who gets left off or whatnot, you know? So it makes it harder than I think it initially sounds. But I think I would go like 5. Before I do my individual players, do you want to give your number?
No, I'm going to do it based on the number of players. I mean, I'm just going to pick players, and then I'm going to.
Okay,
that's going to be my.
So I think we could start
it's not way off. I might be a little more conservative because I don't want to lose $40,000.
Yeah, but I think we both would at least go 3 and say Claire Trope, Rafi Hayes, Chris Kocher. Remember, I said I thought those were going to be the first people picked in that order, and I think we would at least say 3 with those 3 people.
Yep.
Now, I think after that is where you start to ask questions about who you think would be.
Well, now the exercise changes, right? Somebody who I think would be a lock if 100% healthy is Anna Thompson, but not clear that they're healthy.
Do you feel that confident after last time when we both had her making the team and she didn't make it?
Yes.
Interesting. With what's happened with Cami Groom, I cannot. I feel like I cannot just lock someone anymore. I just say they're definitely going to make it. I mean, I think I feel more confident doing that with the returners. So if it were me, I would pick those next 3 women matching players that we have in the draft: Kayla Helton, Claire Chastain, and Carolyn Finney. If I was
that's your final answer, you're going to go.
Would I pick those 6? Yeah, I think that's as far as I'd go. Like I feel pretty good. That like Leaf and Dylan Freechild are going to be in a position to make the team again.
But not like 100%, right?
Mex, but like not 100%. Only somebody's going to. I feel like somebody's going to surprise us. You know, there's going to be somebody who gets left off. It's a surprise. I just don't think it's going to come from those first 6 players.
I'm only going to go 4. Trope, Hayes, Kotcher, Chastain. I don't
You like
I don't
there's
have
risk
enough.
for Finney and Helm.
I do.
Fair.
I do. Yep. Obviously, there's a risk reward factor here, but like an extra $10,000 is not as good as making sure I get 40. So I'd rather just lock up the 40. So well, let's come back to this.
Max Charles
Let's
said it
come back to
best. I
this.
mean, Trope is if you actually want money and you're like, all right, just take Trope 100% lock. Like,
You're guaranteed to make $10,000.
yeah, it's free money.
I don't know. I just Kayla and
The thing
Kayla
is,
feel like probables,
I feel
but not
good.
guarantees.
I feel good about both of them, but you're right. Like, I don't feel good about the idea that I can like hit a 6-leg parlay. You know, like individually, I feel good about those odds, but the chances are that I got 6 in a row locked.
Right.
It's just not good, right?
Right. All right.
But
well,
which one do I get? Yeah.
Max Charles in the chat says Trope is the only locky lock. IMO.
Yeah.
Liam says that Keith's team wins. Trope and Babbitt are the best 2 players, in my opinion. Yeah, I get it. Getting the number 1 pick is obviously a big advantage when there's a very clear consensus number 1. So,
if you had pitched me that we should have done, I get the first pick, you get 2, 3, 4, and then I get 4, 5, and then we snake from there, I would have probably taken you on that. I would have said, okay, that seems fair.
I get 2, 3, and 4, and then you get the next 3, and then we go back to snake.
Yeah. Yes. I think that would be a fair adjustment.
Yeah, and then I may very well have picked. Well, no, I'm not sure what would have changed my picks. I obviously had the chance to take Babbitt, and I took Hayes and Kotcher over Babbitt.
Yeah, and I don't think you would take 3 mail matching players to start.
So no, I wouldn't. I probably would have taken Claire. So
yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Okay, well, that is going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure not to miss our subscriber bonus segment. We're going to be talking about regular season college tournaments, and we're drafting again. We're going to draft the best regular season college tournaments before college nationals. It's going to be a blast. We'll see you in the Discord. Keith, I'm Charlie saying so long, and we'll talk to you next week right here on Deep Look.